Welcome everybody to a new analysis of Tradomics that focuses on the most important fintech stocks in US. So before starting this video, I would recommend you to subscribe to the channel so you will get notified as soon as possible regarding our analysis that are regularly updated, and they involve different industries of bunch of stocks for the US market, but not only that. So on a regular basis, we update the situation on the stocks market for the big tech in US. Then we have the US banks, fintech, green energy. We analyze also some stocks for the Swiss market, for Italian market, and so on. So as all these analyses are based on our methodology, the T cycle analysis, which is a time-dependent methodology based on cycles, the sooner you get the notification and the sooner you watch the analysis, the better it is in order to plan your short or mid-term strategies for investments or trading. So after that, let's start it with Mastercard. So the situation of Mastercard looks pretty nice because we have an uptrend that started thanks to this low occurred on the 27th of October 2023 with a T+5 yearly downward cycle. This yearly downward cycle has been divided in the first positive T+3 3 months cycle that ended on the 20th of February 2024. We have had subsequently another T+3 negative downward cycle because the low from which it ended was lower compared to the low from which it started. And then subsequently we have had another T+3. So 3 times a T+3, the total duration from this T+5 to the end of this bigger cycle has been 185 days. So 185 days is not the minimum duration for a T+5, which is 190 days. You can always reference the durations here on the right-hand side with the different duration of the cycles from a minimum and a maximum duration. And on the 24th of July 2024, we have at the beginning of another cycle, which is a T+4 so far. And this T+4 has been divided in the first T+2, and now we are on the second T+2 of this T+4. You can always check the references and the durations here. So in this case, we have at 43 bars, so close to a maximum duration of a T+2. And now the second T+2 has reached a duration of 21 days. Okay. So as our analysis is predictive, so we can forecast with a statistical, let's say, approach, how long the price can can stay in a trend. Then in order to do that, we have to study the upward cycles. So regarding the upward cycles, which basically is the other flip of the coin of downward cycles, so there are cycles that are connected tops with other tops. From this top on the occurred on the 21st of March 2024, we have had the beginning of another T+5 yearly upward cycle. The yearly upward cycle now is positive because with those candles here, we broke up the top from which the cycle started. So we turned the cycle into a positive one, and therefore, as for the cycle analysis methodology, the extension of the cycle until its minimum, medium, and maximum duration will occur on the upside. This means that if a cycle of T+5 can last between 190 and 338 days, we can proceed to the upside until 190 days up to 338 days. Of course, there are median durations between, but that is basically the general rule. Therefore, here we have reached a total duration of 150 days, which is not even the minimum duration of this T+5. Therefore, what we can say and what we can forecast, as this is analysis that is not reactive, so we don't say what has happened, but we say what is going to happen with a statistical evidence. So the price can keep staying in the trend at least until 190 days, and therefore 190 days will drag the duration until at least 19th of December 2024. This is forecast to be the minimum duration of a T+5, and therefore we can stay in the trend until at least 19th of December 2024. Of course, we can also have a duration which is a median duration, which is approximately 250 days. And if we have 250 days, then we can prolong the uptrend pattern until mid of March, roughly 18, 19 of March. But we can also even go beyond. Now, of course, the pathway to continue this uptrend can vary according to the beginning of other upward cycles. Therefore, here, for the consideration of this analysis, we have also to think about at which point in time we are regarding the upward cycles. So, if we segment this T+5 upward cycle, we have at the first T+3 upward cycle here, a total duration of 64 bars. And now we have another T+3, still positive, of course, of a duration of 60 bars. From this top, we might have the evidence to have a T+2, T+3 already generated. But now let's be careful because there will be the earnings release occurring on the 31st of October 2024. If we gauge the total duration from this top, we have from the top to the top 24 bars. So here we can also have the closing of this T+2. So the next week will be really important to understand whether we will have another weekly upward cycle that is binded to the upside, or whether we will have the beginning of a retracement. But what you have to keep in mind is also the fact that we have from this top already the minimum and necessary duration, even more than necessary duration, to have a T+4 upward cycle completed. And if this will be completed, we can have a T+3 and a second T+3. And this T+3, which is divided in first T+2, second T+2, and further T+2, would have a total duration of 83 days. So here we have, from the top of the 18th of October, we have the condition to start a retracement. And this retracement can also drag the price further down, and this would be the first target actually at $482.90 for a T+4 development. And this retracement could help to do what? Also to eventually close this T+5. Because if we gauge the total duration of this T+5, we have now 249 days. So time will be already will have already a median duration eventually if with this earnings release we'll get a triggering point to start a retracement. So in other words, we can say that the uptrend pattern is healthy, but we can expect next week, especially after the earnings release, we have more probability to have a downtrend or a short-term downtrend to start a retracement rather than continuing to the upside. Okay, because if you gauge the duration as we have seen, you might also statistically calculate how many probabilities we have to further go up and how many probabilities we have to go down. And also, the retracement eventually could help to close the downward cycle T plus 3 because now we have reached a duration of 65 days. So be careful over the short term with Mastercard because we might have retracement after the earnings release. So that is all for Mastercard, and let's now have a look at its competitor, which is Visa. On Visa, the situation is slightly different because from this low that we had on the 3rd of October 2023, we have had a total duration according to the most prominent swing that we can see on this chart since 2023, 202 bars. So basically here we have enough time to close the T plus 5 downward cycle. It doesn't mean that we have to consider this as the beginning of a new T plus 5 because we would have even more time to eventually close a downward T plus 5 cycle. But here we can assume that from at least this swing, we can have a T plus 4. We will see whether we're going to have even a T plus 5. So considering this second T plus 4, we have had a first T plus 2 with a total duration of 43 bars, and now we are on this second T plus 2. So here we have to see whether we will have a condition in which we will start retracing for the closing of a T plus 3, because the total duration now is that more than sufficient to actually start closing the T plus 3 at 65 bars. Of course, this is a median duration because we know that we can have also the closing up to 89 bars. But we have to consider that on the 29th of October, there will be the earnings release. So therefore, here, it's one possible movement that we can expect by end of next week. In order to understand whether the price will go or statistically can go is also the upward cycles. So the second difference according to versus Mastercard is that from this top we have had the T plus 5 upward cycle. The T plus 5 has done a first T plus 4 with a total duration 130 bars. And if we consider here the maximum top with the candle occurred on the 16th of September 2024, we have 253 bars or 253 days. This is already a median duration that eventually can allow the closing of a T plus 5. And of course, as for the downward cycles, here we potentially have even time to continue the uptrend. But this swing now is our checkpoint to understand whether from this top we might have something which is more than a T plus 2 or a T plus 2 that belongs to this pattern. Okay, so at the moment, what we can say, having highlighted the difference compared to Mastercard, is that the earnings release or the setup of the chart before the earnings release does not allow us to make a right forecast whether the trend will continue to the upside or whether we will start having a retracement for closing the T plus 3. So here we need to be really careful and watch what is going to happen next week and of course after the earning release. Okay, so that's the situation we have on Visa, and let's now move to the next one. So the next company in focus is PayPal. regarding this company here, we have a warning because if we gauge the total duration from this swing in which we had the T+5 upward cycle and we track here the duration, or we gauge the duration until today's candle, we have 313 bars. So here we are getting really close to 338 bars with excluding BF tongue, but here the time is getting stretched. Therefore, the earnings release might be a triggering point to eventually begin a new T+5 upward cycle, or at least a T+4 upward cycle. This means that we can see further retracement. And the retracement for a T+4 or a T+5 will need to go lower this point at 76.04 eventually. The second target will be here at 71.36, and then we have also this one eventually at 67.15. So here you have to be now really careful because we are at the end of a T+5 and also at the end of a T+4, because here we have at 124 bars. There is still time to go up, but the priority as this T+5. The T+5 can eventually continue to develop its tops until 338 days, so until end of November. And eventually, if we have a bear tongue between a T+5 and a T+5, then we can add eventually another month. So we can still have time until end of December, okay? But statistically speaking, we might have more retracement rather than uptrend. There's still have time to proceed to the uptrend, but statistically speaking, be now really careful. Also because if we gauge the duration of this T+4 downward cycle here, we have arrived at 64 bars, and therefore we will need to start having a retracement to close this T+3, or the second or the first T+3 of this T+4. And eventually that retracement will allow us to close this T+5. If we gauge the duration of the downward cycle T+5, now we have reached 249 bars, which is already a median duration. So be really careful on PayPal with the earnings release next week. Time to go up, but statistically more chances to go to the downside. Another thing, and this is the last thing I want to show you, is you see the Bayet tongue. In this case, we have at a T+1 connecting a T+4 and another T+4, and for the same flip, so regarding the downward cycle, we have had exactly the same situation. So we have had another Bayet connecting the first T+4 and the second T+4. So here we have had a perfect specularity between the upward cycles and the downward cycles. So having said that, let's move to the next one. So the next company we have under our radar is Discover Financial Services. So this is another peer of PayPal. So the peers are the companies in which the banks are monitor the trends, and they basically what they do, investment banks, is that they regroup the companies into buckets, and they study the trends of those companies that are belonging to those buckets in a way that they can study also the industry or the sector in which they belong to. So Discover Financial Services is another company, as said, involved in the fintech, especially digital payments. In this setup chart, we see more or less the same situation as for PayPal, because if we gauge the total duration of this T plus 5 upward cycle, we are at 315 bars. So basically here we have not so many days yet to proceed to the uptrend, but then definitely more probabilities to start a retracement, potentially starting from this top, a new T plus 5 or at least a T plus 4, or a cycle that should be wider than a T plus 2 in order to have some discontinuity between one wider cycle and the beginning of another one. In this context, we have also the downward cycles in focus. We have a T plus 5 that has begun on the 26th of October 2023. We have added the first T plus 4 downward cycle 117 bars, and from the 16th of April, we have added a new T plus 4, which is now has arrived at 134 bars. So if we also split this second T plus 4 by having a look at this T plus 3, we have reached 58 bars. So basically, the beginning of something new as an upward cycle will also allow the closing of this T plus 4 and then this T plus 3. In order to close a T plus 4, we need a T plus 1, negative T plus 1. So we might have this situation eventually. But of course, we will need to monitor this top, because if we will go back over this top, then in the next weeks, then the T plus 5 will not be over yet. So also on this stock, really careful in the next weeks, because the probability to start a retracement are higher compared to the probability to keep the trend in an healthy condition. So having said that, let's move to the last one, which is Block. So if on one hand we had PayPal and digital financial services close to finish the T plus 5 upward cycle, here on Block we are close to finish a T plus 4 upward cycle, because from this top occurred on the 13th of March 2024 until the top that we had on the 19th of October. 21st of October 2024, we have at 153 bars. So basically, we are really close to the maximum duration of a T plus 4, considering not an hybrid cycle, which is 168. So here, what we can have is that potentially we might have a bit of continuation to extend eventually the cycle until its maximum duration, because this T plus 3 has turned into a positive cycle. Therefore, we can have a further push to the upside, but this further push to the upside impulse will be eventually the last one before commencing something new, which can drag the price down for a retracement in order to start either a new T plus 4 or a T plus 3. In order to say whether this is a T plus 3 or T plus 4, we need to monitor eventually the retracement and which kind of price levels will be broken over time. Also, in this case, we have the earnings release that will be issued by the end of this month, and the potential retracement that we might have will also allow the close of a T plus 3, because at the moment from this T plus 4 we have had a total duration of 58 bars, so we have more than enough duration to get the T plus 3 or 3 months downward cycle closed. If we gauge then the total duration from this T plus 5, then we have also a median duration eventually to close the T plus 5 downward cycle. And if we gauge here the duration, we have 191 bars. So here potentially we might have also the closing of this T plus 5. Here I put T plus 4 because I don't see too much push to the upside at the moment. It seems that so far this cycle belongs to this one. But here, as for if I'm not mistaken, for Visa here we might have potentially a new T plus 5. So bear it in mind. I don't see too much detachment from this cycle compared to this one. But also here, if we will see more push to the upside, then this can be turned into a T plus 5. But also bear in mind that there is also this possibility. Okay, so that's the situation we have on block. So on average, on block, PayPal, digital financial services next week will be important to, especially in the light of the earnings, to understand whether a further retracement will happen or not, to close either the T plus 4 or the T plus 5 upward cycles. So be careful to stay in position. So plan accordingly. Or plan your positions according to your risk and to how long you want to hold the stocks. But that is the situation so far, and I hope this video has given you lots of insights to plan your trading or investments accordingly. So thank you very much for watching, and see you to the next episode.